Imagine a city. Towers pierce the sky, gleaming testaments to corporate might. Advertisements blaze across holographic billboards, a symphony of consumerism. This is our future, sculpted by the invisible hands of power. We are told it's progress, it's not, it's a cage with gilded bars. The streets teem with people, but their faces are vacant, their movements robotic. They are cogs in a machine they barely understand, their lives dictated by algorithms and boardroom decisions. They think they are free. They're wrong. This is the illusion of freedom, a carefully constructed facade designed to keep the masses complacent. We celebrate our individuality while marching in lockstep to the rhythm of corporate greed. We think we have choices, but the options have been carefully curated, the outcomes predetermined. This is not dystopian fiction. This is the world we are sleepwalking into, a world where corporate power reigns supreme and the pursuit of profit trumps all other values. Behind the gleaming facade, a select few pull the strings. These are the corporate titans, the billionaires, the puppet masters of our political system. Their wealth is their power, and they wield it ruthlessly, buying politicians, shaping policies, manipulating the media. They fund think tanks to churn out self-serving research, bankroll political campaigns to install sympathetic puppets in positions of power. They lobby for deregulation, tax cuts, and trade deals that line their pockets at the expense of the working class. They tell us it's about free markets and trickle-down economics. But the only thing trickling down is our standard of living. They preach the gospel of personal responsibility while rigging the system in their favor. They are the architects of inequality, the beneficiaries of our collective amnesia. And we, the people, are left to pick up the pieces. The siren song of patriotism is hard to resist. Fight for freedom, defend our values. The message is clear, the call to action undeniable. But who are we fighting for? And what are we defending? Young men and women, fueled by patriotism and the promise of a better life. Enlist in droves, they are told they are fighting for freedom, but more often than not, they are fighting to protect the interests of the very corporations that profit from their sacrifice. The military-industrial complex is a hungry beast, and it demands to be fed. It needs enemies, real or imagined, to justify its existence, to secure its funding. And so we are bombarded with images of foreign threats, of existential dangers, of enemies at the gate. Fear becomes the currency of control, and we, the citizens, become all too willing to surrender our freedoms in the name of security. Section 4. Boots on the ground, profits in the bank. The evidence is overwhelming. From Vietnam to Iraq, from Afghanistan to Libya, the United States has a long and bloody history of military interventions driven by corporate interests. Oil, minerals, strategic resources, these are the spoils of war, and the corporations that control them reap the rewards. We are told it's about spreading democracy, but the reality is far more cynical. It's about securing access to resources, expanding markets, and consolidating power. The cost of these interventions is staggering, both in terms of human life and financial resources. Trillions of dollars wasted, countless lives lost, all to line the pockets of a select few. Section 5. The illusion shattered. The truth is hidden in plain sight, buried under a mountain of propaganda and disinformation. We are told to be patriotic, to support our troops, to never question the motives of our leaders. But what about the troops who return home broken, physically and mentally scarred by the horrors of war? What about the families torn apart, the lives shattered in the name of corporate greed? The illusion of freedom crumbles when we realize that our choices are constrained, our voices muted, our lives dictated by forces beyond our control. We are sold a narrative of freedom and opportunity, but the reality is one of diminishing returns and shrinking possibilities. Section 6. Wake-up call. This is not a call to apathy, but a call to action. We must see through the illusion, challenge the narratives, and demand better. We must hold our leaders accountable, demand transparency, and reject the false choice between security and freedom. The fight for a more just and equitable world begins with awareness, with a willingness to question the status quo and demand better. It begins with a recognition that true freedom comes not from blind obedience, but from informed dissent. The future is not yet written. It's time to reclaim our narrative, to rewrite the rules of the game, and to create a world where power resides not in the hands of the few, but in the collective will of the many.